You said 2 more minutes. We can go. Okay, fine. Right, so welcome, Michal Kopyt and Ewa Koprowska from PZU Group. And we will be talking to you about momentum of projects. Some background, we've been working together for 7 or 8 years already in PZU. And for the last 5 years, we've been doing mostly Agile projects. And for the last 4 years, we're involved in a program called Everest. We're starting from the basis. We build a big group of roughly 500 people working purely in Agile. So we are talking not from perspective of one team, we'll be talking from perspective of a group, of a mass of people doing Agile, and giving you some advice, and maybe listening from you at the end with the questions, how to make it happen. And we feel that something we call momentum, which we'll elaborate on, is important in this. So.
And my disclaimer. All we know that the pillars in Scrum are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. And after fair inspection, I realized that if I have to speak English here, I need those papers. So please treat them as a form of adaptation.
Because this means that I will be pretty stable, I will be doing all the dancing. So,
please do.
Yeah. Right. So,
the first question is, how do you understand the concept of momentum in Agile project? Michal Kopyt.
Guys, there is no theory to it. I mean, physics says this, that momentum is mass times velocity. We speak a lot about velocity of Agile teams. That's what we live. We see how they work, we measure it, we know about points and so on. We very rarely speak about mass, about the number of people who are doing whatever they are doing on Agile programs. And for us, because we are dealing with those big groups, the whole concept is important, mass and velocity. We call this momentum. We look at this, it's very difficult to measure, but it's got its big impact on what we're doing. And the thing is, when we were looking at the way projects are ran, we saw that there's a very big difference between waterfall and Agile in terms of momentum. So just let me tell you, typical waterfall project. I will be exaggerating because unlike the lawyers, I hate waterfall and I got to know that it doesn't really work. But look, here's more or less what it looks like. You start with very little number of people and you build a team, momentum goes up, people are beginning to be happy because they just left a organization, they came to a project. They come to a point with the momentum rising up of kickoff of a waterfall project. And this is the highest moment of momentum. That's as high as it gets. They sign a contract, or we sign a contract to continue with development. The first phase, as usual, is analysis. And the waterfall project analysis is the moment when momentum completely is lost. Because you worry about what might happen in 2 years' time when you will go live. You worry whether iPad 4 you are doing this development for will be present in 2 years when you finish and you will go live. You worry about everything. You hire consultants to tell you what to worry about. Right? You just stop. That's what happens. So at the end of analysis, more or less here, you are worried to death. So you start development. You say enough's enough, right? People close the doors. Sometimes they go to different locations. They develop code. It takes months, sometimes years. You are at low level of momentum, but you are somehow progressing without much changes, and you are doing something. Then comes UAT. You know UAT in waterfall projects. Finally everything collapses. But because there's lots of adrenaline, because people get together at some point, it looks like they're doing something. Momentum is rising. So when you go live, it's more or less okay. Then it goes down because you have another release. You start analyzing again, and it goes down and down with every release on a waterfall program. Agile changes this, and that's why we believe doing big programs should be Agile. Because the beginning is more or less the same. You get to this euphoric moment. It's nice. It's kickoff, right? You have everybody on board. You have Scrum teams. You start from a higher level because starting Agile is interesting. People learn something. It's different. People are not called project managers. They are called Scrum Masters or Scrum Masters. They are not called business leaders. They are called product owners. It's different, and then you behave differently. But then what happens, you don't overanalyze yourself. You start doing things. You start showing things. And if you're good at this, very quickly, you are live, right? You have first go live, second go live. You know, you are keeping the momentum going. People are not leaving your company because they like what you're doing. People are not slowing down because they are concerned with the next releases, and they are still showing what they've done. So at some point, and this is more or less where we are after 3 years of doing this repetitively, with ups and downs, of course, you get to a point when you need to look at the momentum, reanalyze it, and see how to keep it for the next months, years, or however long you want to keep your team. And that's what we will be focusing on then. So Ewa, our coach, somebody who's really, in the middle of the fight, in the middle of keeping the momentum and keeping the things going, will tell us about how we maintain it.
Back to physics, it was project management theory. In order to maintain near to constant momentum over a long period of time, you need the driving force and maintaining of the same mass. By mass, we mean teams, all the teams in project, and our momentum is efficiency. Talking about the Agile project, talking about every project, you need continuous efficiency. And we were looking for forces. Yeah. Of course, we have many obvious forces like positive thinking, creative thinking, smiling, etc., etc. But we want to underline some of them, some that we were thinking about, and we think that it is important to share them with you. Take care of the teams, pull in one direction, control changes in environment, and remove blockers and fight tropes. 4 of them. 4 very important. And the first of them is the one that it is described in one book, one of my favorite books, maybe some of you read this Management 3.0 by Jürgen Appelo, and Jürgen compares in his book teams to the gardens. 4 years ago, we have 2 full of energy, brand new Scrum teams. They didn't know what the Scrum Guide is, and we treat them like fresh seeds in uncultivated soil. We water them, we give them time to be fruitful. And we realize that this investment paid off. Right now we have about 30 mature Agile teams. They are fruitful, they are even by thinking that they need no effort on our side to be fruitful. But it is wrong. When you start to think that teams don't need your effort, don't need your time, you don't see the first signs of incoming problem.
And if you're doing this, you might get to a point which we are really trying to avoid. That's, the problem you get, as I said, after something like 3 years. Not to have a garden which is dying.
But you're supposed to dance, not talking.
Yeah, fine.
Sorry. One can say, I have the second part. One can say that when you have a big momentum time, so this is the time for rest. But I want to underline one more, that this is the very time that you need to find out the better ways to develop team. And look at those backlogs. The first is 4 years ago, the first backlog. It's real photo. And find 5 difference. This backlog isn't very good. This is our user stories and our dependencies. We were about 200 people working on those dependencies and talking about one day and then following some discussion the second about how to do in 30 teams in integrated environment such a task. So this is our development. But to maintain communication in such a group, to keep the momentum, we set up some guilds. Scrum Master Guild, Architecture Guild, QA Guild, and Business Analyst Guild, and last but not least, Agile Think Tank. This is the meeting that every week we gather to talk about important things to us, to share knowledge, and we are still trying to inspect and adapt.
up. So we keep developing the teams all the time, and our major focus is not to stop, to make it even more interesting however long we do it. So this is taking care of the teams. Point number 2, which is pretty obvious, but it needs mechanics to be done, is making sure that we are going in the same direction. If you have 500 people doing something, everybody will have their own idea about what's to be done, right? So we're trying to make sure that the goals, not the way for this to be done, but the goals are visible all the time. And we actually kind of use the schedule we have, and we build it around this fact. We have big room planning for every release, where we start with saying what the goals are for everybody. 200, 300 people, as much as, you know, as comes to those trainings, we show them the goal for this release is this. 4 points, not more. They need to know. Then we reiterate it with sprint planning. Then we try to make sure that everywhere it's visible. So goals for the teams are visible, are, you know, reachable. If we see that we deviate from the goals, we tell it to the teams. We actually had this point like yesterday. We've seen that one of major goals of the release we're doing is not being visible enough for everybody. So we gathered everyone and we said, look guys, we are missing the point. You know, 200 faces. We're telling them, not this direction, this direction. Momentum should be here. Then number 3, controlling changes.
Back to physics again. If a closed system is not affected by external forces, oh, it's beautiful, but the project is not closed system. Projects are full of different forces from different sides, like politics, stakeholders, change of requirement, change of the law, etc., etc. And it is very important to look at them, to find the strongest forces, and to think about how to cooperate in such environment. For example, KPIs. Look at KPIs in your organization and look at your goal in your project. Are they the same? Or maybe similar, very good? Or maybe they are opposite? And if you find those discrepancies, let's talk about it. But not inside the project, not only with the teams. Let's talk about it with the business, stakeholders, and all organization. It is very important, it matters.
And it's very difficult as well, because you need to be in constant contact with your environment and understand it. Now, my favorite part. Something we don't talk about much normally. But just, if you don't understand what I will say in the next minute, you work for the most happy organization ever. But if you do, just think for a second. Do you know trolls? People or groups of people who are a problem for your Agile teams. Guys who don't understand Agile, who create lots of negative energy, who tell you your product is shit, who tell you the way you work doesn't really work, right? You need to help your teams not to be alone when they encounter a troll or a group of trolls. You know, fairy tales say they're usually at the bridges and they are afraid of light. So, you know, when you get to a bridge, you see somebody is blocking it, you immediately think it's a troll because he's blocking. You need to do something about this. The best way is to expose them. Just show them the way you are working is affecting the way our project, our Agile team is running. It's affecting velocity. Because you don't talk to us properly, people are leaving. So it affects mass, which means it affects momentum. Whatever you are doing, make sure that you see the people and the places where your teams are being blocked and do something about this. Trolls are my favorite and the most difficult ones. And you know, it takes some courage and it takes some time to deal with them, but we need to do it. We need to do it. Agile doesn't work if you just forget about this. So, we just had 80 minutes.
And you heard this beautiful story about the sun.
Yeah, right. I was trying to say this. You know, Tolkien says that trolls become stones when they are exposed to sun, right? So, just use it. Just expose them to sun. If they are just, you know, staying in one place, you can go around this. That's what Agile is for. Right, so those 4 points, just summarizing. Make sure your teams develop all the time. Don't lose them. And, you know, for us, every time we forget about team development, we forget about any of our deals, momentum goes down. So, point number 1. pull in one direction, as I said, making sure that everybody understands the goals and that we managing this and that everybody around understands those goals in the same way, very important. Point number 3, look at your environment, try to understand what is its direction, its momentum, and try to align it with what you're doing on your project. If it doesn't really fit, go as high as it can and be transparent about this. And point number 3, half of you are Scrum Masters, you know about removing blockers. I'm just trying to encourage you to be really strict about people who are blocking your teams, not just simple obstacles which are technical. Fight the trolls. Because the goal is, and we've been saying about this throughout lots of speeches right now, but it is the part which is the most important. You need to be proud of what you're doing to do Agile properly. You need to be proud to keep the momentum of big Agile organizations running. And I just love this picture. This is a team under a sign we put up for our vendor doing all this project with us. People who understand that they have been appreciated, they know the product is okay, and they want to continue doing the same stuff with the same happiness and level of efficiency. They are keeping the momentum up and running. And this picture shows us, just look at the ladies. They will stay, so they will keep the mass, and they are happy, they know what they're doing, so they will be going with the same speed, the same velocity. So we have those two things. Proud people create momentum. And that's what we encourage you to do. Thanks.
Thank you.